Hi, guys, and welcome to Magnifique, your favorite Fashion Week analysis podcast. I'm your host, Gabrielle, and today we talk about the history of Fashion Week. Really, what is it exactly? We dive headfirst. And we learn about it all. Fashion Week is a biannual fashion wonderland event taking off globally, but most notably in New York City, London, Paris, and Milan, the Big Four, as they call it. It's a time for holding space in our calendars in February and September. Fashion Week is a 7 to 9 day event where designers come together and host their upcoming design seasons. I found myself particularly interested in this topic as the 2025 Fashion Weeks, or Fashion Month rather, is upon us. I found myself realizing that I know Fashion Week exists, and for whom, but how do we get here, and how might I one day get there? And by there, I mean into a Fashion Week show. Please, I'm begging you, please invite me to your show. Please, please, please. Anyway, in this episode, we'll discuss everything from the origins of showing off your latest designs to the invitation process and yada yada, everything in between. You get the gist. But first, Haute Couture Week was this week, and by this week, I mean the 27th through the 31st. Let's talk about it because I have been keeping up with it. Right now, it's the 30th. Yeah, I'm recording this a little too close to the deadline, but hey, one thing about me is I will always make a deadline. So, I want to talk about my favorite haute couture looks. Obviously, you can't see this, but maybe one day you will be. Who's to say? Really, I just wanted to talk about my favorite designers that I've seen so far. I've been seeing a lot of the color purple, and I do love that. I called it last year, purple is the new color, purple is the it color, purple was particularly my color, and if anything, whenever I like something, I just assume that everybody likes it, and that it's going to be trending. I knew that purple would be trending, so no surprises there. What else? I found myself absolutely enamored by Armani Privé. I have my iPad next to me because I wanted to be able to look at the looks while I discussed them. And I'm so sorry that you can't look at the looks while we discuss them, but maybe illegally pull up your phone while you're driving and look at these looks because they are stunning, fabulous, amazing, dare I say, delicious, stunning. I'm so obsessed. So that was someone who really took me by surprise, mainly because I've never watched a couture fashion week in real time. I've always looked back after the fact, and I really didn't understand what was happening, to be completely honest. But this year, I'm built different, and I'm her, and I am that girl, so I know everything now because I researched it for this episode. So those are my thoughts on Couture Week. Seeing a lot of capes. If you know anything about me, I'm a sucker for a cape. Viktor and Rolf. I actually did like a couple of their looks. A lot of it was meh, but I have 2 photos saved. They use the same color palette for the whole look. I don't know if that's typical for Viktor and Rolf. Like I said, and like you've heard in the intro episode, we're fashion industry noobs. So, those are my thoughts and opinions. Let's talk about Fashion Week. Let's talk about the origin. So where did the idea of parading new designs for people to ooh and ah at come from? It's really impossible to say. However, it's actually not impossible to say. The Industrial Revolution made way for tons of fashion technological advancements, from the sewing machine and synthetic dyes, just to name a couple. They made fashion so much more accessible to lower class people. And more accessibility means people have to one-up each other. People are just booming out all these new designs. These innovations enabled designers to diversify their clothing designs and giving a rise to fashion as an art form. Thus, the proliferation of various designs also came competition. During the late 1800s, we know the 1800s fondly on this podcast. Everywhere, every designer, every brand starts in the 1800s. So we are so familiar and love the 1800s. Love them. During the late 1800s, businesses began employing models to wear their clothing and meander around populated areas like racetracks, hoping the masses and mass media, while we're at it, would notice. Shop owners in Paris and London were among the first to send beautiful young women dressed in these samples to those horse race tracks or perhaps opera premieres and the Bois de Boulogne. I should have Googled that to pronounce it, but who cares? Where socialites took their morning strolls, it was thought that organizing a social event would show off their latest couture designs and gain brand exposure. Even in the late 1800s, it's all about capitalism. So historians debate who truly popularized such events, though many credit English fashion designer Charles Frederick Worth in the late 1800s, 1860s. Charles Frederick Worth, the founder of House of Worth and founding father of haute couture, introduced the concept of sewing brand labels into clothing and offering a wide range of apparel. Before this, fashion houses and shops typically specialized in specific wardrobes, and Worth also founded the Chambre Syndicale de la Haute Couture in 1868, so essentially patenting the term haute couture. Charles Worth introduced the idea of holding fashion shows for his clients 4 times a year. At these shows, the models first began to walk down the runway in front of a large audience, who then selected their favorite designs, which were then launched into production. Other fashion houses began organizing their own shows, following the lead of Charles Worth. Another big name in the Fashion Week history game is Lucy Christina, aka Lady Duff Gordon. Her shows were very popular at the turn of the 19th century and the start of the 20th century. Also, Paul Poiret, who transformed walking down the runway into colorful shows resembling that of theatrical performances. At the turn of the 20th century, fashion shows were now being held beyond Europe's borders, such that the first fashion show in the U.S. occurred in 1903 at Ehrlich Brothers department stores in New York City. Shows back then were invitation only, and photography was strictly prohibited for fear of brands and designers copying each other's works. In 1911, the show titled The 1002nd Night, a Persian Celebration. This show made global headlines, and then in the 1920s and 30s, the fashion show concept had become an integral part in social life, the fashion industry, creative expression as a whole. It really intertwined itself in American culture. Designers of the time made few attempts to unite under one show. That was until 1943, when American journalist Eleanor Lambert organized Press Week in New York to draw public and fashion media's attention to American designers. This New York event is considered the first ever Fashion Week, although it would remain named Press Week until 2001. But anywho, Eleanor Lambert consolidated all fashion shows in the city into one single mega event called Fashion Press Week. Over time, it took shape into the Fashion Week that we know and love today. Fashion Weeks run consecutively in major style capitals around the world, starting in New York, starting February 3rd in New York, to be exact. So New York Fashion Week ends, London picks right back up. Then London ends, Milan picks up, culminating altogether in Paris. Now, these 4 fashion weeks are called the Big Four, and just because they are the biggest, the most transformative, most influential, you'll see most of the big names here. That's not to say, though, that Fashion Week doesn't occur elsewhere. Many cities all across the globe indulge in a little Fashion Week moment. Now, Fashion Week doesn't have an official board or council that officially decides who sits at the Fashion Week table. In that makes official slots hard to come by for new designers to score these limited spots and call dibs on a time slot. Emeritus designers basically show every season, so people plan for it and know that their line are coming, so they make room. The other issue is budget. Not every designer can afford an elaborate show at an expensive venue. So it really just comes down to budget constraints and inaccessibility to be able to show at these weeks, which, okay, makes sense. I'd prefer quality over quantity. I don't want just anybody to be able to show at these weeks. But I also have a lot of thoughts on Fashion Week as a whole that I'll get into at the end. Really just the exclusivity of it. Yada yada. Anyway, different designers show in different cities all over the world. Native New Yorker Michael Kors shows in his home city, while Paris-based British designer Stella McCartney and French Chanel shows at Paris Fashion Week. So Eleanor Lambert coined the concept, but Giovanni Battista Giorgini, a buyer of Italian collections, coined the term Fashion Week for his process, for his project. In 1951, he held a series of shows at the Palazzo Pitti in Florence, marking the beginning of Fashion Weeks in Italy. Paris Fashion Week has been organized by the Federation of Haute Couture, which is the successor of Worth's Syndicate. Charles Frederick Worth, to just remind you of 10 minutes prior. Paris has the most exclusive Fashion Week participation, limited to Federation members only, and the Federation has a lot of strict guidelines that you must follow in order to be able to show. The Federation currently houses 15 members, ever-changing. It just depends on who's meeting these criterias, but you'll notice that Chanel, Dior, Givenchy, Jean-Paul Gaultier, and Maison Margiela, they have been in this federation for a long time, and the looks that I was talking about in the beginning of this episode, this is Haute Couture Week, so you have to meet a lot of guidelines to be able to show there. I am going to make a little YouTube short of the history of Haute Couture just because there's not enough information to warrant a full pod. I really think I can consolidate it into like 3 minutes. So you want a mini-sode? Go to my YouTube. Sorry, we're rambling and then we'll get back to Fashion Week, but I've been posting a lot more on my YouTube because after the little stunt TikTok pulled, I decided, you know what? I need a superiority complex. I'm deleting TikTok. While I'm at it, Mark Zuckerberg, you're on the chopping block too. I deleted all my Meta accounts. And then I never had X. Well, I did, but it was called Twitter then. And once Elon came in, I said, no, I'm not letting a loser tell me what to do. So I deleted that a while ago. So now I don't have any social media, well, except Blue Sky. I really do like Blue Sky. Anyway, all that to say, I now hold a superiority complex over not being in the loop. And someone just told me today that Louis Tomlinson was at Zayn Malik's concert and they left together. And they knew that because of TikTok, and now I'm just feeling a lot of FOMO. So that is something that I'm having to deal with, is just being like left out of everything. But I actually think it's for the better because my brain does hold on to things for a while, and being in the loop for too long, I might jump off a bridge. Anyway, foreign fashion houses can participate as a guest or correspondent members. London designers were known for protesting any kind of syndicates and valuing their independence, so they conceded from the Federation in 1984. And since then, London Fashion Week has become one of the brightest celebrations of its time. One thing about Fashion Week is that shows rarely, if ever, start on time. On average, they're like 20 to 40 minutes late, just sitting around, waiting, with the actual runway part averaging 30 to 40 looks shown. Now, I said most will not start on time, but Marc Jacobs is the fabulous exception. He's very punctual. If his show starts at 7, it is starting at 7. The first model is walking out at 7. I adore Marc Jacobs. You know, we love Marc Jacobs on this pod. I've gushed about him many times, but I still haven't given him his own episode. So that's curious. But I can't next month because it's Women's History Month. So, sorry, Marc Jacobs. Maybe we'll see you in April. Okay, the runway show should be seen as a form of artistic expression from the designer's standpoint. So that means you'll see exaggerated, more dramatic versions of the products that will be not sent to the stores. So you may notice that an ethereal dress is completely see-through on the runway. You're seeing nip all over the place. But it's likely that when it goes to stores, that they'll incorporate a modest slip, so you will be good. There are 2 ways a designer might show off their looks during Fashion Week. One is the runway show production, which is the model walks out to show the audience the fit, give a cute little pose, and continue on their merry way. The other is a presentation setup, where the models basically double as mannequins, standing/posing in some sort of themed vignette. It allows guests to get a close-up look of the collection. Now, everyone who goes to Fashion Week must be invited, unless it's an open-to-the-public event, but that is few and far between. So editors, retail store buyers, fashion bloggers, influencers, friends or clients of the designers, and famous people. Celebrities in the front row are either there to support their designer friends, or, and most likely, they are present to promote the brand. Twice a year, the fashion industry's biggest names show their latest trendsetters for the world to marvel at. The gist of Fashion Week is that it's a week-long fashion show that occurs across the globe, bringing together fashion and business in one harmonious presentation. Now, let's understand more by dissecting the concept of New York Fashion Week. Modern-day Fashion Week as a concept was created in 1943, dubbed Press Week, and held at the Plaza Hotel. Press director of the New York Dress Institute, Eleanor Lambert, is the mind behind the week. It was idealized during the German occupation of France. Fashion insiders were unable to go to Paris at the time. Thus, Press Week was created with the intent of attracting fashion industry's attention away from French culture, because at this time, France was at the top of the fashion world, leaving little baby crumbs for the rest of the attention and the American designers. So she's meant to showcase American designers for fashion journalists who had otherwise neglected U.S. fashion innovations. New York shows were consolidated to a single location in 1993, and in 1994, the runways found their first home at Bryant Park, conveniently located in the Garment District. Eventually, the shows outgrew the iconic Midtown grassy greenness and moved over to Domrosh Park in Lincoln Center in 2010. There was a brief moment in history where New York Fashion Week was called 7th on 6th after the 7th on 6th event management company. In 2001, 7th on 6th was sold to IMG, and in 2004, Olympus became the title sponsor, and the events were known as Olympus Fashion Week. In 2007, Mercedes-Benz became the official title sponsor, and the events became known as Mercedes-Benz Fashion Week. Today, IMG's shows are shown as New York Fashion Week, the shows. And they represent roughly a third of the total New York Fashion Week schedules. IMG is the official organizing body that runs the shows and presents at the Lincoln Center, and Mercedes-Benz has been the official sponsor since 2009. I understand that was a lot of titles and dates. It made sense to me. It does make sense to me. I'm here, I'm with it, but listen to it again if it was a little bit confusing. The shows take place in real-life tents since the raw space is an outdoor park. Albeit super Lou and expansive structures compete with heating air or air conditioning. Designers like Donna Karan, Tommy Hilfiger, and Rebecca Minkoff traditionally show at official Mercedes-Benz Fashion Weeks or the tents. Though showing in the tents is not a requirement, Alexander Wang has moved her shows out of the tent and showed in Brooklyn on a couple of occasions. Though you will need to fund the secondary location yourself, that is kind of a barrier to entry if you don't want to show in the tents. The event is a physically enclosed space that only a select few are allowed to enter, rather than an open to the public exhibit like the Ideal Home or Chelsea Flower Shop. The dividing line between inside and outside is not only very strong drawn, but mirrors and reproduces the boundaries that exist around the wider field of fashion. You know this, you know that I believe this. I think that fashion is a very exclusive industry and elitist. I'll say it. I will stand my ground on that. So Fashion Week as a whole is a rather elitist event. That's just my 2 cents, but I will continue to look at all of the looks because I love them very much. Thank you. Thank you. The economic impact of New York Fashion Week upon New York City was estimated to be about $887 million in 2016. So just imagine inflation, grandiose spending habits, just really bump that up to a couple bill and we're good. 2025's main Fashion Week hub will be the Scarlett Lee building in Chelsea this year. So let's talk about London Fashion Week. I will admit London and Milan aren't as expansive as New York, just due to I didn't find much. London Fashion Week was the first English-speaking series of events to use the term Fashion Week, beginning in 1984. Originally organized by the French Fashion Council, who still organizes the event today. London Fashion Week operates as an embodiment of the wider field of fashion, an instance of the field of fashion materialized or reified, physically realized or objectified, thus in bringing together the field participants into one spatiality. The catwalk theater kind of maps out the positions and relationships in which fashion capital are enacted as part of the performance that Fashion Week as a whole has on society. It's responsible for making, marketing, and retailing clothing. British fashion designers jostle for positions on the international stage, with many of them securing top positions in French couture houses. For example, McQueen at Givenchy and McCartney at Chloe in recent years. In the realm of publishing, key institutions are established players, such as London Fashion Week's mirrors these hierarchical relationships with the wider field of fashion. Now, I will admit that a lot of what I just said came from a scientific research article about the psychology of Fashion Week, so I do apologize if that was a lot of big words. Milan Fashion Week was founded in 1985. Most events are organized under the auspice of the National Chambers for Italian Fashion, and they were founded in 1958, but some of the largest design houses such as Dolce & Gabbana and Gucci show outside of Camera Moda. Paris Fashion Week. We are in the midst of the first portion of Paris Fashion Week. Paris Fashion Week was founded in 1945 And this is 2 Fashion Week events, 2 different fashion weeks. You have Haute Couture and the Pret-a-Porter. Pret-a-Porter is just ready to wear. So Haute Couture shows have been held in Paris since at least 1945. After the German occupation, people were kind of desperate to hold on to some sort of extravagance and creative expression. Thus, Haute Couture Week was emerged. And when Chambre Syndicale de la Haute Couture required couture houses to present a collection of at least 35 runs to the press to be considered haute couture among other qualifications, with both daytime and evening looks. I would just like to kind of circle back to Couture Week 2025 because it literally is happening now as I speak, and everything is so breathtaking. I will post my favorite looks on Blue Sky. I don't know if I said this in the beginning, but I am a girl who loves capes, so any of the cape looks, amazing. I want 14 of them right now. Yes, ma'am. Gimme. The French Federation oversees the main Paris Fashion Week calendars and awards accreditations to those who are allowed to show under the couture guise. All official Paris Fashion Weeks are held by the FHCM. All other events are said to occur during Paris Fashion Week, but not officially affiliated. Haute couture gradually declines in favor of off-the-rack and ready-to-wear, and later runway shows become more energetic. We fortunately can still see haute couture in some shows today, but the shift in focus to practical clothing is very evident. This is my plea. Please keep haute couture alive. I love her very much, and I would do anything for her. I love the creative expression. I love the extravagance. I think they're much more interesting to look at than ready-to-wear, and that's not to say ready-to-wear is bad. And I'm sure many people will agree with me, I love the intricacies of haute. Paris took a while to join the bandwagon, but it held its first ready-to-wear fashion week in 1973 with the Battle of Versailles fashion show. The event was organized to raise funds for the restoration of the palace's namesake. Fashion Press Week was invitation only, but eventually allowed the press to take photos of the featured fashions. Designers only have around 15 minutes to make their designs appeal to the audience, so they come up with eye-catching, if not extravagant styles. Most people would die for the opportunity to sit in the front row of fashion shows, filled with celebs, a person who works in or around the fashion industry, or influencers. The chance of finding yourself front row if you're not influential is pretty slim. Celebrities are paid to attend fashion shows, can vary widely if they get paid at all, depending on compensation with a monetary payment, while others might receive free clothing, accessories, or other perks. It's reported that Rihanna was paid about $97,000 to attend Karl Lagerfeld's show in 2012 in Paris, bearing in mind that 2012 was 11 years ago, so it's likely that the price has tripled since then. Not all celebrities are paid to attend fashion shows. Many attend simply for exposure, networking opportunities, or out of genuine interest in fashion. I saw Meg Thee Stallion's look for a couple of the couture shows. She looks stunning, amazing, gorgeous. I love Megan Thee Stallion. Industry shapers who get to decide what pieces of the collection will be stocked in stores. Fashion buyers' presence at Fashion Week is crucial. Their mission is to discover the collections firsthand, to see what are the standout pieces, important to get a feeling for what the customers may love, and source inspiration for future trends. Fashion editors, writers, and columnists report on the runway by writing a review. Fashion editors are the ones responsible for deciding what goes on the pages of the magazines, kind of like Miss Anna Wintour. Seeing the collection allows them to spot brand pieces that they could request later for a photo shoot at the magazine. Stylists who work at the magazine have similar tasks during Fashion Week compared to ones of the editor. For journalists, fashion shows represent news and they constitute stories while they help buyers to understand the designer's vision. For PR is the backbone of society, really, but PR professionals are the ones who organize fashion shows, and all of the associated events included press days, store openings, dinners and cocktails, and various social gatherings. They take care of day of the event, from the idea of the day of the event to sending invitations, choosing the location, organizing the seating, welcoming guests, taking care of the social profiles during the event, in charge of communicating with the media. Really, they do it all. Thank you, PR. This reminds me of Samantha from Sex and the City. She is a PR baddie, and I want to grow up to be Samantha. Actually, I kind of like who I am now, but Samantha's really cool and I love her. Important clients of the brand who spend X amount of dollars yearly might also be invited to shows. Big spenders make them big investors to the brand's profit. So as a way to repay them for their loyalty, they may be invited to shows. Again, famous people attend fashion shows. Many of them are designers' muses, faces of the brand, or just friends. Influencers are relatively new when we look at the history of Fashion Week. Traditionally, only fashion industry's professionals and famous people attended couture events and famous fashion shows, but having influencers and content creators at Fashion Week, like I said, a relatively new movement. Social media is a powerful platform where brands build their businesses, an online presence, and many collaborate with influencers to take a lot of pictures and film fashion shows. I've seen a lot of influencers wearing complimentary outfits from the brand to create more publicity for the brand and increase awareness. Unless you can bring value to the brand, you probably won't get invited to the show, which is such a heart-crushing reality. But if you still want to get in, volunteering during Fashion Week may be an easier way. You won't probably actually get to see the whole show depending on your station, but this experience will allow you to live and breathe a bit of the fashion industry, to see the collection by working backstage as a model's dresser. Although fashion weeks are rather elitist events, some brands try to make them more inclusive. Like Diesel invited 1,600 students from various colleges and fashion schools to see some events by purchasing tickets. They find paid events open to the public. For example, the Vogue World event last September was a runway show open to the public. Some smaller brands are open to the public because they need more visibility. Some fashion brands have dedicated standing spots for invitees so they can watch the fashion show standing next to photographers, for example. If you are lucky enough and one of the guests who had a seating spot didn't make it to the show, you could be offered to replace them. It's not good for brands to have half-empty rooms, so they bring in seat fillers, kind of like the VMAs. Now, going to the show is more about being seen rather than actually seeing the clothes. You can probably see the clothes better online anyway, higher detailed pictures, less bright and overwhelming environments. Also, weeks of previews where editors go into the designers' showrooms and look at all the pieces close up from the collection. So attending the show is more about having your picture taken, networking with industry people, and having something to post. Now, where you sit during these events is everything. Prestige and status radiate from the front row back and from the end of the runway up. New York Fashion Week, the front row seat on the left side at the end of the runway is reserved for Miss Anna Wintour, editor-in-chief at Vogue. And fashion directors usually occupy the front row along with celebrities, socialites, and important buyers from stores like Barney's or Neiman Marcus, really just high-level people. Other editors, buyers, bloggers, etc. occupy the remaining rows. Keenly aware of where they are sitting, some editors are given a seating assignment, but may request a new seat if they don't get the seat that they want, and could easily take offense and not attend at all. Social capital means everything in this space. It also means being excluded from social events, private after-show parties, the run alongside the show. A young model discussed his encounter in the fashion industry, describing the world as being like a medieval court. In the complex of social hierarchy, we belong to each other by belonging to a common visible world. Belonging is important within the particular relationship of stage to audience, allows for struggle for visibility due to the seating at the shows, opposite one another from the runway, which encourages kind of like a gaze and mutual recognition, as well as being central to the experience of the show as spectacles. The seating is part of the show, in my opinion. Beyond the front row, seats are allocated for less important players. The furthest reach are designed as standing. This area are for those with much less power and influence, such as particularly resourceful fashion students. The seating at these shows really maps out the power dynamics and relationships, and it's a state of power, which relations among its players. Now that we've learned everything that there is to know about Fashion Week, I think it's safe to say that the theatrics of Fashion Week and the concept of putting on a performance by simply being present feels like a little cute, culty ritual. I didn't put this in, but it was also just playing the part of being there, playing like you belong. There's a lot of psychological factors that go into being present at a Fashion Week show. And obviously, I'm not speaking from experience because no one will invite me to a Fashion Week show. These are just vibes, and I'm not a hater. I'm just thinking critically. But like I said, it kind of gives cute little cultish ritual positive connotation. I did at points feel a little cringe while learning about the exclusivity of invitees. I feel like conventions and entities who want to be exclusive so bad are a bit strange. But I suppose that's life. For most people, there is absolutely nothing more enticing than everyone being invited to something that you haven't climbed the ranks to earn yet. So maybe one day I'll make it into Fashion Week. But for now, I will continue to do my nightly scrolls on the Vogue app to catch up on the day's fashion shows. So that's Fashion Week. I hope I didn't sound too much like a hater. I felt like I was giving a good happy medium. Skeptical, but also I love what I see. I love what I see so much. I did see, and this is just my opinion, I did see Christian Dior's couture show, and I wasn't super loving what I was seeing. It kind of just looked like unfinished ball gowns. It really felt like they found that cage, the little cage skirt. They said cut off 3/4 of it. And once they decided that they really liked it, they also said, now make it in every color. Now give it feathers. Now put some texture. They really ran with it. And I'm loving that for them, but also, no comment. Actually, no comment. Thank you guys for listening. I hope you guys learned a little something about Fashion Week. Like I said, I will have a haute couture short on YouTube. It's truly not long enough for me to make a whole podcast episode on, so I'll save you some time. Go to my YouTube. I also have been posting on Blue Sky. It's pretty cool over there. I didn't think that you could really customize it as much as you can, so that's super fun. I'm on Substack. Someone bullied me into writing more on there. I don't think writing is my thing. I'm a really big talker, as we can see. Thank you guys for listening, and I hope to see you next time. Let me know who I should do for Women's History Month. There's a lot of women in the fashion space, and I feel like I've been covering a lot of men lately, and we know how I feel about that. So, thanks. Bye, guys.